Hi, my name is David Alley. I live in Denver, Colorado. I was raised in a predominantly white environment, but I have a couple of memories about race. One was when my family went to visit my mother's folks in the panhandle of Texas. My grandfather was openly hostile to African Americans, and when Martin Luther King Jr. came on television, he would use the N-word. This was something my family didn't talk about, even though my dad was a minister. We just ignored it. The other memory was from an aunt who was doing genealogy research and reported that some of our ancestors in Missouri were enslavers, 5 or 6 people. I filed this away and ignored it. Now I'm appalled, but it took only the past 5 or 6 years before I started to come to terms with what that meant. And the turning point was a workshop, an intense weekend workshop called Mindful of Race by Ruth King. It helped me start to acknowledge that I've had the advantage all my life of white skin. At the same time, I was in the process of selling my business back to employees and starting to think about what I could do in this new, maybe last chapter of life that would be useful. I started reading that House Bill 40 had been designed to study slavery and its impact and make recommendations back to Congress for repair. I read further and finally came to understand that slavery was what our country's was built on, human capital, and the suffering, the tremendous suffering African Americans had, and ironically the harm that this caused all of us. My business brain finally started to realize that reparations was important because it didn't make financial sense for us to continue policies based on racial injustice. A few years ago, I read a report from the Kellogg Foundation. It was called The Business Case for Racial Equity. It indicated that potentially $8 trillion increase in our economy would result from having systems built on racial equity, equitable access to healthcare, to financing, to banking, to education. I think black-owned businesses are more likely to fail because they don't have equitable access to the kinds of financial products and services I had as a business owner. The opportunities that appeared recently around COVID-19 payroll protection plan was something that we decided to pursue as a business, and it was relatively easy. We called our local banker, filled out the paperwork, we got the loan. Black-owned businesses, however, may not have that kind of access and may not get that protection and go out of business. That's obviously harmful to them, and it harms the entire economy. We need to have an equitable economic system, and I think it's important for me to speak up as a small business owner and say that, and advocate for reparations as a means to that end. However, it's not just my business brain. My heart reminds me that part of my DNA existed in an earlier form in the form of slave owners. That gives me pause. I feel shame, sadness, anger, and a growing sense of responsibility to do something tangible to reverse that gross inequity. Slavery is evil. It's wrong. And economically, our country was built on it. Whiteness has allowed me to be successful in our capitalistic culture. Now at age 71, I'm starting to think about ways I can do reparations personally and systemically. I have a lot to learn, but I think we're on a good path by having established a reparations affinity group at the Denver Foundation. It's called Reparations Circle Denver. We're donating money and raising money from other white people to support the Denver Black Reparations Council. And they will decide who gets the grants, not us. I've also changed my last will and testament. If there's any money left when I die, it will all go toward reparations. Hopefully something here is of interest and will push and maybe pull people's hearts and minds to join this effort. Reparations are essential, and I think we can and must do it.